got a few questions for you, and I will ask you because I listened to two tapes, one from the Minister Plasterk, a video tape, and I listened to your tape at the press conference after attending the JVO last week. And first of all, I'd like to ask you, the 22.1 million that the Dutch is making available, or the Kingdom making available to St. Martin, what would that money be used for?
The general label to that is strengthening of the justice chain on St. Martin. And that is what I got pinned down at the JVO, that one does not speak of improvement of the justice chain in the Dutch Caribbean, and for that purpose, 22 million euro is being made available. No, I got pinned down that 22 million is solely and only for strengthening the chain on St. Martin. The question as to, well, what is it going to be used for specifically? There is no breakdown up to now that I have received or how it's going to be spent. It has remained to a general statement, we have made 22 million available. When I look at the protocol that was signed by my predecessor makes mention of strengthening of justice chain, for which a certain chapter of the budget of the Kingdom minister is going to be used to pay for, but right behind it says pay for by him and St. Martin. And there's where my big question marks come in, because we have not agreed, or I know of no reason, or I know of no plan when that protocol was signed as to what it will cost St. Martin. So my general position is it can't cost St. Martin anything. Simple reason. We don't have the budget for it, and we have to comply with an instruction given to us. Even when the budget is approved, you still will have the constraints going forward, and our ability to contribute anything will rest in our ability to generate new funds to be able to accommodate those expenses.
Okay, based on the tape I listened to from Minister Plasterk, he mentioned the 55 RST detectives that will be deployed for St. Martin, but will be staying in Curacao. And this money, based on his statements, which I heard on video, is to sustain those 55 RST detectives. You spoke about the lack of manpower with KPSM. Do you still agree that the Kingdom is going to deploy 55 RST agents, but they're going to live in Curacao and come to St. Martin?
What do you mean if I still agree? Did I agree previously? I have never agreed. I've never agreed to that. I heard that this is the plan,
okay,
and I've said that the plan, according to the protocol, has to be delivered to the Minister of Justice, and there has to be an agreement on the plan. And up to date, there has been no discussion on any plan. There was a meeting scheduled December 15, that was postponed, and here I am up to the day. I know of no plan has been discussed with me.
All right. Should the discussion take place, if you disagree or agree, whatever it is, with the 55, what role would the Chief of Police of St. Martin, KPSM, have in the management of those RST coming to work for St. Martin?
That's a hypothetical that I can't answer. You are asking me,
you have a protocol.
Should you agree or should it be discussed with me? I think the protocol says nothing about that. So I have to wait and see when the plan comes that they need the consent from the Minister of Justice for, what that plans entail. I don't want to speculate who will have which role in what without me seeing the plan.
Thank you very much for your questions, Bibi. Hilbert Haar, Today newspaper, you have the floor.
Question for Minister Gibson. The agreement in Aruba about the exchange of DNA information, I understood that that includes a DNA of suspects. Now my question is it mandatory to provide DNA, or is that voluntary for suspects in particular?
Well, it's not a matter of, it is a database that is set up, and the exchange between the countries of that DNA information. So it's not a situation where you're going to a suspect and ask the suspect, would you please give me a DNA sample? It has to do with existing DNA samples in each country, and to have an exchange of information as far as that DNA is concerned between the countries. One of the bottlenecks that we run into is the privacy laws that are required to be able to exchange that kind of information. And that is being worked out now to see if we will reach that point.
But is it mandatory to provide DNA when investigators want it, or?
In every investigation, the way I understand it, the prosecution department collects DNA where necessary, and DNA is not only obtainable from someone with their consent. I mean, if a strand of hair of yours fall on the ground and that's found, and DNA tests can be made of that, and the DNA information is available. So it's not a question, it's mandatory as to you're always dependent on the victim or the suspect to voluntarily give it to you. You can obtain it in many other ways.
Okay. All right, thank you. That was my question.
Thank you very much, Hilbert. Cornelius Mary, SOS Radio 95.9, you have the floor.
Good morning. My question is to Mr. Gibson. We just heard of your intent to start a law school on the island. I know it's in the preliminary stages. It's all in the making. But do you have, with the state of the economy of the country at this time, do you have any idea how you're going to secure funds to do that?
Yes, I do.
And would you like to let that be known to us?
No,
this
because
morning?
they have not yet been crystallized. But the message I want to send everyone, you can't afford not to do it.
Okay. I also I picked up a newspaper this morning, and one of the headlines read, "Late night ferry from Anguilla to St. Martin, starting January 17." We know that the ferries normally pass through the French waters. I see that the agreement between Anguilla and Dutch St. Martin, were any of the French officials involved in that meeting? And if yes, what was, is there anything in it for them? And if no, why not?
Well, that answer is very simple. No French officials were involved in that meeting.
So what does that mean now? Because people are saying on the French side, they're asking the question, what is it in it for them? Because they're using the waters after certain hours of the evening. Is that even legal? So I posed the question to you this morning.
Yeah. The meeting was between representatives of the government of Anguilla and representatives of the government of St. Martin. It related to an agreement that already exists for several years now, and the expansion of that agreement, the present agreement, with 3 hours more in the nighttime. So those are the two parties who had a meeting to amend an existing agreement that has been in existence for many years. And there was no French participation. And if the French wants, other than what has been happening for years, something out of it, I guess then they should raise their hand and show their face and ask for meetings to discuss, but that has not been the case.
So finally, the route from Anguilla to St. Martin, does it pass under the Sandy Ground Bridge?
It's the same agreement that has been in existence for years, and those boats, yes, go through the Mullet Pond through the bridge in Sandy Ground, yes.
On the budget, perhaps I missed it, but can you say how far along that process is now, how close to Parliament it is?
Well, I can tell you that the budget has been submitted to the Council of Advice. The expectation is that middle of this month, the Council of Advice would make their comments and send it back to the government. Depending on the items and comments they make based on the budget, we will have to react to that. My expectation is that, or my hope is that we are going to get that budget to Parliament in the second or third week or fourth week of this month.
Okay. On the overdraft that was taken, I believe last month to cover expenses, how is it going with the government coffers at the moment? We're in the middle of January already.
Good.
Just good.
Good. To elaborate on the question.
Thank you.
I'm happy to report that we did not have to make use of that credit facility.
And the reason for that in the end?
We didn't have to make the use. We didn't. It was a precautionary measure we took because it looked as if we will have a shortfall in December, but knock on wood, that has not been the case.
Thank you.
Alito, thank you for your questions. Andrew Dick, the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning to the ministers. Minister Gibson, as far as crime, the union reached out to you a couple of, last month. What is the latest with the discussions? How's it going? Is it on your agenda?
You know, I've got to say that I'm somewhat befuddled. I took the oath, and immediately after I took the oath, I understood that the union, police union, asked for a meeting with me. In fact, they approached the Prime Minister because I went to Holland. And the Prime Minister asked them to please wait until I return. As soon as they returned, a meeting was scheduled, and I was there for the meeting, and there was only one person from the union. Waited a half an hour, and then decided we have to reschedule. I was criticized for that as if I'm the one who did not attend the meeting or reschedule it because I wanted to reschedule it, but the truth of the matter was that they didn't show, or at least only one showed. We then rescheduled. In that meeting, the police union and all its members showed up. And there was a litany of issues that they raised going back prior to 10-10-10. Now, in my perception, the meeting was a general discussion to inform me of what are the issues. And of course, I informed them what the state of finances are, and especially that justice was over 10 million in deficit, and that I've got to deal with the budget, and I'm only interim Minister of Justice, and it was expected that the new Minister of Justice would be there a week or two. So we had a general discussion. We left quite amicably. That's the last communication I had with the union, up to this second. So I read things in the papers that is being said and what have you that I did not react to. But I'm befuddled, as I told you, in terms of, do you expect in 60 days, without any follow-up meeting, without any specification of the issues, for the Minister of Justice AE to be able to resolve all of those issues in less than 60 days? So, again, I'm befuddled.
Looking to resolve it, Minister, are you open to
Of
having more
course,
discussions?
I have attempted over the change of the New Year's, Christmas season to see how I can be helpful and what I could get through. And then certain grievances that they apparently had, because they were not specified to me in that general meeting we had, those issues, after fighting to get them resolved, we find out the papers were lost. Somebody did not do something. Still tried. Eventually got a whole package of them. And all of them were with negative advices. So that's where I gave up and say, well, we'll have to wait until there are brighter days to see if those issues and others can be dealt with in a responsible manner.
So your message to them is they can contact you?
No, I have not sent no message to anyone.
I'm asking, what would your message be to them then?
If there is a grievance that they need for me to attend, not general issues. I mean, if you tell me about your function book that has not been from 10-10-10, that is something that one has extremely large increases in expenses, while we have a budget that is very, very tight. So this is not the moment to finalize or address that, because all it will mean is you're going to bust your budget. Nobody wants the budget to be busted, because you then back into problems with the CFT, problems with your obligation to have a balanced budget. It all depends on generation of income to be able, the same way as I told the court, or told Mr. Foster, as far as the budget of the court is concerned and the budget of the Procureur General, there is no money. Now, I could take that cover from the cistern and put it back on and do as if there's money. But I chose not to do that. I chose to follow the route that we can only spend what we have. So we have to have it first.
Thank you very much for your questions, Andrew. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our Prime Minister, the Honorable William Marlin. Of course, to the members of the media, you can pose your questions to him at this time. Let's start our second round. Bibi Shaw, you have the floor.
Minister Gibson, as I continue with the same situation with the famous protocol and the set of detectives that were supposed to be deployed here. You made it clear that there is no discussion, and as such, you cannot give an opinion. Are you going to seek to see if you can get that protocol revised, since it's not, in our view, the best interest of St. Martin?
If I'm going to take the step to get the protocol revised, the protocol has to be honored.
As is?
Because it has to be honored. I mean, it's something that exists. Sign, seal, and deliver. And I think you have to be living in the moon to think that voluntarily after all that went down prior to this protocol and after, that the Dutch will just say, oh yeah, let's change that because that's what Richard Gibson wants. The protocol, everyone states, is to improve the justice chain on St. Martin. I'm for that. I'm for making the changes that would improve, especially the police corps on St. Martin, because I think that that should be the center of everything. And doing something temporary like in the last 3 years reminds me of the Marechaussee years ago, which I've also been involved in and bring them here, who came for 3 years, and at the time I says, listen, at the same time you have to start a police school on St. Martin, because in 3 years, theoretically, they're leaving, then what's left? And that is same thing that up to today is haunting us, that the police force, what you have is, we've hired a lot of Indians, but management-wise, high-level-wise, academic-wise in the police force, there's been little or no improvement, and that is the area that needs acute attention, because you could keep hiring Indians, but you're not going to get the results that you're after by only having Indians. People who go to police academy, there has to be a program to produce those people for the force, otherwise you're kidding yourself. We've hired a lot of BAF pullers who had a very basic training. There has to be programs in place so they can improve, so they can go up the ladder. All of these things cost money. And I'm hoping to get some of that 23 million to do that. But I got to see the plan.
Your statement, your press conference in Aruba, I listened to it, and you said give a lot of credit to the kingdom for trying to, or making it possible to give St. Martin 22.1 million to develop the justice chain while they have a lot of refugees in Holland to deal with. Do you think the kingdom is more, their obligation is supposed to be towards the refugees or the countries within the kingdom? Or should we become refugees in order to get the attention of the kingdom?
You are taking things completely out of context, and those are not the facts. First of all, like I told you, I wanted to have established that 22 million is for St. Martin. Mm-hmm. That has been achieved. There is another plan, and that plan is to have an improvement of the justice chain of the entire Dutch Caribbean. And I didn't want to get confused in that. I want to establish for St. Martin, the 22 million is for us. Mm-hmm. That new plan that came up after the protocol is a plan that would bring about that more money is going to be needed. And if you look at the minutes of the meeting, it says specifically that Mr. van der Steur, the Minister of Justice of Holland, says that that plan they can't proceed with because they don't have the money. And the reason they don't have the money is the refugees that have been infiltrating Europe, that has busted almost every budget of every country in Europe. Those are the facts.
Thank you for the explanation.
You're welcome.
Prime Minister Marlin, good morning. I believe last week you announced you are heading to the Netherlands next week, I think, or supposedly this week sometime. Do you plan to meet with, I think you did say it, you're going to meet with the Minister Plasterk. When this idea of the protocol that was signed, came about. Of course, at the time you were a member of parliament and was totally against what was in this protocol that you guys got at some wee hours of the morning. Will you try to rediscuss or renegotiate or bring up anything about this protocol which is not in the interest of St. Martin?
Which protocol exactly you're referring to?
The one that our Minister of Justice spoke about that was signed by his predecessor regarding the integrity chamber and the 55 RST that is going to be deployed here, the 3 members, 2 of which are going to be from Holland and 1 from St. Martin, that protocol, the famous one.
The integrity chamber may or may not become a discussion. I am not going to Holland to discuss the integrity chamber. There are other issues, but primarily it is an official get to know. While I know and have seen all the players, if you want to call it, in The Hague, it is but, pertinent and proper that you have an introductory meeting and you get to know each other in the capacities that you are in. But there is no set agenda to dissolve the discussion on the integrity chamber. I think it is a station passé to some extent in the sense that St. Martin, the St. Martin Parliament, approved the establishing of an integrity chamber. So that discussion is not a discussion now to take to The Hague. If St. Martin no longer wants the integrity chamber, then St. Martin has to initiate that discussion. But there has been no discussion in terms of we are going to squash the integrity chamber at this point in time. The integrity chamber in itself has not yet gone into effect because of the ombudsman put it before the Constitutional Court, and it is then to see how we move forward in that area. One of the issues that we have to contend with is the whole financing of such an integrity chamber. There are still members of Parliament who are of the opinion that an integrity chamber is not ultimately necessary to deal with all of the issues or to deal with the issues that we have. But that's a different discussion. My focus is not, to begin with, the government is here for 9 months. There are priorities that the government has to set for itself, and taking on a battle right now about an integrity chamber is not priority 1 on my agenda.
BB, thank you very much for your questions. Hilbert Hart, you have the floor.
Yeah, Minister Gibson. Earlier this week, MPs Van Raak and Bosman made a statement to one of my reporters that I didn't really trust. And that statement was that soon investigators from the Netherlands, Italy and the United States would come to St. Martin to do an investigation into the gambling industry. I posed that question, I didn't publish it, I posed the question to the prosecutor's office. And I said, we don't know anything about it. Do you know anything about that?
Absolutely nothing. But why are you so surprised? We have heard other statements from those same sources that when it reaches us just makes no sense whatsoever.